Welcome to another episode of Family Gamer TV. We're looking at Kinect Rush today. Now this is a game that's similar to Disneyland Adventures, but includes the Pixar films rather than the Disney films. So you have games as we're playing here for Toy Story, for Ratatouille, for the Cars games, and that's a driving game, and you have one for The Incredibles, and you have one for Up. Now these games are a little bit like the Lego adventure games, but of course, rather than controlling your character with a joystick, you're actually moving around in front of the controller. Sometimes when it's hard to control, we'll close the curtains to make sure there's no sunlight in the room, and that seems to help quite a lot. And also, if you've got dark coloured clothing, it seems to help if you roll your sleeves up. And again, that helps the Kinect sensor see you. If you get really stuck in a section of the game, a skip option pops up that lets you go past it without completing it. Obviously, you don't score quite as much, but it's a nice way that you can carry on without getting totally stuck on one of the more tricky sections.
And it is quite good that you can have this skip thing where you do it for you. It's quite good.
Why would you prefer it with Kinect rather than controller?
On some of them I would prefer Kinect, and on some of them I would prefer controller, like Toy Story and Up. You could have a thing where you need a controller for them because they're quite hard when you do that or something. So
you'd like to have the option to have a controller if you wanted?
Yeah.
Yeah, which isn't a bad idea actually. But really, where Kinect excels is in the sort of the connection it creates with the game. So when you're playing it, you forget you're playing a game, don't you?
Yeah.
And you're just flying, or you're being Buzzy, or being Woody. And that's great to see you play like that. So I think if you had a controller, you'd lose some of that. Really, I think Kinect Rush works because we're quite happy to get the room set up and to get the controller working properly, because the game itself really makes you feel like you're in these Pixar games. So Tom's picked to start one of the Cars 2, that's right, Ollie. And now we're introduced to this little girl who wants to play a game, and she starts telling us about what the adventure's going to be.
Someone has planted a bomb somewhere on the course of the Tokyo Grand Prix. I have a bomb.
And then it switches from their world
Disarm the bomb, but it only works at very short range.
To the Cars world.
Even I have to speed the course to find the bomb. Get close enough.
And you guys like that, don't you?
Yeah.
The way it changes.
Yeah, but I think they are actually the people, but they're just imagining things. I think.
So it's as if the children are playing, but this is all in their imagination.
Yeah.
And you have to work together. So in some parts of the game, one person. That's it, Ollie. You're fine. Yes, that's it. You're fine. You're just there. So what you need to do is just move forward. Oh, and you're robots, aren't you? And what do you think? Is it a good game? Do you like it?
Yeah.
And what is the best thing about it?
The bit where like, I like the Cars 2 on that. I like, of course, we got Cars 2 and Cars 1 to those DVDs.
You've watched the films lots of times, haven't you? Yeah, so the Cars games that Ollie's talking about there, you have a racing game and you put your hands up in front of you and you control the car by steering, but it's by moving your hands in the air, and you can do a boost by pushing forwards. You can also go up on one wheel to sort of do a skid around the corners by lifting a leg up, and you can also jump to get into certain parts of the game as well. And in each of the games, the more you play them, the more bits get unlocked, so you can go back and play the same adventures but access new parts. So in the Cars game, you unlock a rocket, which means you can sort of blow up rocks that are in your way and get to new parts of the course. So there's quite a few ways you can go back and play it again. So Tom, do you want to come and tell us what you think about the game?
I think it's good because you can tilt quite easily, and it's quite fun because you have a video at the beginning.
What's it like? Because you're not using a control pad. Is it better or?
I think it's better. On some things like Up, it's quite hard because you have to do loads of little bits. But on this, you don't have to. You're just running. And Cars, that's quite easy because you've got 4 wheels.
Yeah.
Compared to us, we've only 2 legs, so it's a bit more easier.
Yeah. Yeah, so the Cars game is probably the easiest one to control. And some of the adventure games are quite demanding. They want you to do quite precise actions, don't they? And move to a very particular part of the map to get forwards. Like you have to walk across a log, didn't you?
Yeah.
To balance, or you had to trigger a bit where one of you had to stand on one end of a seesaw,
Yeah.
and the other had to.
Yeah, bounce on it, that's where to, and then
Yeah.
lifting up.
So if you're playing on your own, what happens is that the computer takes control of the other player. So, for
Yeah.
instance, there's a moment where you have to stand on a seesaw, and the other person needs to jump on the other end. Now, if you're just on your own, you stand on one end, and the computer character will jump on the other end and sort of tell you where to go. That side. What are there? There's Toy Story.
Cars, Ratatouille, and Up. I think,
And The Incredibles.
and also
Yeah.
Incredibles.
Have you got a favourite?
Incredibles. Yeah, Incredibles.
What's it about The Incredibles that you think makes it the best one?
Well, you get to do like loads of super moves and stuff.
So you get like special abilities.
Yeah,
And what sort of special abilities do you get?
like to float in the air and stuff like that.
That's quite like the flying in Disneyland Adventures, isn't it?
Yeah,
Is it the same or?
yeah. You just have to move your hands differently.
And so when you're flying, what do you do with your body?
Well, for Disneyland Adventures, you put your arms out like that, and for Incredibles, you go like that.
Yeah. And so it
Then,
sees you.
if you want to move this way, you put your arms this way. If you want to move that way, you put your arms that way.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So there are some differences in the control, and they've sort of worked to get you to do gestures that are clearer for the Kinect controller to pick up. So some of the flying sections in Disneyland Adventures, I think, have been improved. In the Incredibles section here, you have some flying moments where you're a superhero flying through the sky.
Yeah.
But because the gestures are using two arms, it's much easier to steer where you're going. So Kinect Rush is another Kinect game that really sort of tries to move things forward, so both in terms of the control and also the options you've got as a player. It feels like they're still working really hard to improve things. Now, Kinect Rush, I think, is a little bit better for older players because of that split screen and because two players can play independently and also need to cooperate. It suits this sort of 7+ age group compared to maybe Disneyland Adventures, which is great for really young kids. We're out of time this week, but we'll be back with more games soon.
Bye!